Se me fue como se va la tarde.
Before Peso Pluma would drop La Be La Sola, the first ever Mexican song to enter the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Before Peso Pluma would become one of the 5 most listened to artists on Spotify alongside Bad Bunny, Drake, Taylor Swift, and The Weeknd. Before Peso Pluma would have over 3 million subscribers on YouTube, 4.6 million followers on TikTok, and 10.4 million followers on Instagram at the time of this recording. Mexican musician Peso Pluma, well, he's practically created his own era. Now, as other Latin-based artists have flirted with the idea of crossing over into the mainstream in a big way, well, Peso has actually delivered on all fronts, becoming the first superstar to popularize a modernized take on the historically marginalized genres of regional guitar and horn-driven music. And more than just that, well, over the past few months, well, this 23-year-old, he's racked up more historical milestones than just about anyone else in the industry, which means if he isn't on your radar yet, well, he sure as heck will be after you check out the journey that turned him into a gigantic celebrity on our latest episode of Before They're Famous. Now, typically we would drop these on our Spanish channel, but that went and got hacked, so I guess there'll be more on this channel coming your way. Peso Pluma was born Hassan Emilio Cabandelia on June 15th, 1999, in the municipality of Zapopan, Mexico. Now, like a lot of kids who dream of one day growing up to become famous, well, Peso dreamt of becoming an athlete, in particular a soccer star. But when it became clear to him that he wasn't physically gifted enough to accomplish this feat, well, he switched his passion to music. Now, while he's been notoriously private about his family life, well, Peso, he has shared a few details with us. For instance, he grew up in a hardworking family, none of whom were musicians, but who definitely instilled a heavy respect for work ethic in a young Peso. Raised on a steady diet of hip-hop and reggaeton, well, Peso, he harbored designs of becoming a rapper, but he quickly came to realize that his voice was too gravelly and nasally for that style of music. So while spending his adolescence in Guadalajara, sorry, I probably butchered that, it's in Mexico, well, Peso kept searching for his sound, teaching himself how to play the guitar in the process. Now, he also began adapting songs from journal entries he had written in notebooks, taking inspiration from some of his favorite regional artists like Ariel Camacho, the man who became a generational hero after his untimely death at the age of 22 in a car accident back in 2015. Now, Peso also spent a fair amount of time living with family in San Antonio, Texas as a teenager. Now, that's where he not only learned English, but he discovered the music of American acts like Jay-Z and Kanye West. Now, during a visit to New Orleans, well, he fell in love with jazz and the trombone, which would become a key instrument in his later sound. Then at the age of 19, well, Peso, he bought a ticket to New York City to get a taste of what his favorite rappers were all writing about. Now, he soon became so enamored with the place that his friends back home, they began calling him Peter Parker, the secret identity, the Big Apple's own Spider-Man, you get it, right? Well, Peso, he explained to Billboard, "I always used to tell my friends that I was Peter Parker, and now it all makes sense. Peter Parker is Hassan off stage, but Peso Pluma is Spider-Man when he goes on stage and fights against the bad guys of the world." Now, while living in New York, well, he got himself a job working at an Italian restaurant in Little Italy. Then he moved to LA and he began making about $200 a day as a construction worker. Now, all the while, well, he continued dreaming of accomplishing something much, much bigger. Peso Pluma's arrival as a musician, well, it happened just as the new wave of Mexican Gen Zers began to embrace the traditional country music of their parents and their grandparents, putting their own spin on the genre of norteñas, or corridos, or cumbia. My God, I really miss Aylin. She was our Spanish host. Now, originally Peso, well, he wasn't a solo artist, but a member of a 3-person group, including his cousin, all of whom were collectively known under the name of Peso Pluma. Now, that name, it translates to featherweight, and reportedly, well, it serves as an accurate description of how skinny all 3 of these dudes were at the time. Now, the moniker was then solidified after all 3 of them, well, they encountered former featherweight boxer Marco Antonio Barrera, a sensational fighter who has held titles in 3 different weight classes over a 2-decade career. When Peso Pluma first began separating himself from the pack as a solo artist, well, he used to try to explain that Peso Pluma was the name of his entire group, but now he seems to have adopted the moniker for himself as his popularity has exploded. I always wonder what happened to the guys who kind of didn't make it. You know what I mean? Maybe they're doing construction. I don't know. Now, shortly after his arrival on the scene, well, Peso Pluma, he struck a small-time deal with a local record record label, and he dropped a string of EPs throughout 2020 and 2021 known as Atwaikwe and Efectos Secundarios, respectfully. Now, at this early stage in his career, well, Peso, he was still making music just for fun. But in February of 2022, he unexpectedly discovered his path to stardom when he released a single alongside MC Raul Vega titled El Belicon. Now, the track went viral on TikTok almost immediately and earned nearly 10 million views on YouTube in just 3 days before eventually going on to become certified platinum 8 times over. Much different than anything he had released before, well, with this track, Peso ushered in a unique fusion of regional Mexican music with modern trap influences. Now, following its success, well, Peso jumped ship to Prod Gin Records before launching Double P Records in partnership with them. Now, reflecting on this accomplishment, well, Peso, he told Variety, "A lot of my success has been based on sacrifice, discipline, and keeping my foot on the gas pedal. That type of hustler mentality is ingrained in me, and I think coming from this genre, that discipline is our strength." But the man wasn't done growing yet. Now, as Peso Pluma takes over the music industry, well, he's become an absolute monster on Spotify, becoming the 5th most streamed artist in the world on that very popular platform. Now, one incredibly important factor when it comes to his exponential growth is Peso's willingness to collaborate with others. Now, of the 6 hits that Peso has on Spotify's global top 50, well, only one is a solo song. The others are all alongside fellow rising stars of the industry. Now, according to sources like Luminate, the popularity of regional Mexican music in the United States, well, it's increased 42% over the past year. That's outpacing gains made in other genres like country, dance, rock, and pop. Now, only K-pop has performed better. But even with that context or those numbers, well, Peso's growth is pretty stunning. Now, from June of 2022 to June of 2023, well, his average daily streams on Spotify, they increased by 10,792%. Now, throughout that period of time, well, his music has also taken on a more romantic quality, especially with his next major hit, Ella Baila Sola, which translates She Dances Alone. Now, we also released reggaeton hits like La BB, and he seems ready to embrace his new identity as the bridge between Mexican youth and their counterparts in America, while they're eager to stay connected to the sounds of their lineage. Now, his fans especially, they love it whenever he takes the stage, thanks to the spectacle of his high energy performance. Usually clad in shorts, a t-shirt, high socks, Air Force Ones, and sometimes even a Spider-Man mask, while Peso dances and jumps around the stage with an endless supply of energy. Now, ahead of his first US tour, well, he dropped his 3rd album, Genesis, a name that signifies the current chapter of his life. Now, 1 week after the release of that album, well, Peso's music was already occupying half of the top 10 spots on Billboard's Hot Latin Song charts. Just like that, well, everything had fallen into place. He told Harper's Bazaar, "It was a dream that I knew could come true. We've worked really hard to make this happen. We've shattered a lot of expectations for people who thought that Mexican music couldn't do it, that we were half-assing it, that the music didn't have the potential to do it, and I think we've quieted a lot of voices and raised the Mexican flag up high." Despite his incredible success, don't expect Peso to take his foot off the gas anytime soon. Now, not only does he have a new single about to drop alongside A$AP Rocky, but his 5-year plan includes winning a Grammy, breaking more records, and transforming himself into the Jay-Z of this particular genre. For now, however, well, he's content with being Peter Parker, otherwise known as Double P, and considering all that he's been able to accomplish in a short amount of time, well, can you blame the guy? He's got the world at his fingertip. I mean, if I were Peso Pluma, I'd soak up that success for as long as possible. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our latest edition of Before They're Famous. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I do have a question for you. If you were going to name yourself after the secret identity of any superhero, which would it be? Any Clark Kents out there? I don't know. I'd like to be Bane, right?
Oh, we're wondering what would break first, your spirit or your body?
Right? Not bad. Anyways, guys, what's his real name? I guess it is it Bane? Anyway, sound off in the comments down below. Bruce Banner. Not a bad name as well. That's a good one, right? All right. See you guys in another video.